close call. All right, welcome back to the AOS Department Seminar. We have another lightning round today. This time we have 3 presentations instead of 2. So we'll hear first from Margaret Mooney, followed by the AOS Mentorship Program, and lastly from Nagle. So before each presenter, I'll give a little introduction, give them some time to present, and then we'll have a short Q&A after each presentation. All right, so a little bit about Margaret Mooney. She is a former National Weather Service meteorologist and current Director of Education and Outreach at SIMS. She is also an adjunct instructor for AOS 102, an online course on climate and climate change offered each summer. She obtained her bachelor's from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor and an MPA from the University UW-La School of Public Affairs.
Thanks, Bailey. And thanks, everyone, for coming. I'm going to present a lightning talk that I presented at AGU last December, and I'm super delighted to also be able to share it here. I didn't change my slides. I just wanted to point out that, of course, I'm going to include satellite data. So we'll start with that. The name of the project is called Mindful Climate Action, combining mindfulness meditation with education on climate change and sustainability to lower carbon footprint. We all know that the climate crisis is a big threat to humanity right now. The Mindful Climate Action team believes that changing your personal habits and lowering your personal carbon footprint is a big part of the solution. We've actually been at it since 2014. At that point, we got a Climate Quest grant. UW had a competition on campus. And Bruce Barrett, he's the guy in the back there. He is the PI. He's a physician and a professor at family medicine here on campus. I met him, by the way, serving on an ad hoc committee on fossil fuels and climate change. And I want to mention that because we often have opportunities to serve on these committees. And if you're interested in one of them, you might want to do it because you might meet someone who's interested, who has a similar interest. So since then, with that little bit of money, we've designed and developed this 8-week program with measurable outcomes, because that's one of the goals. And they are increasing climate knowledge, reducing food-related carbon footprint, reducing automobile use, increasing active transportation, reducing household energy and water use, and increasing health and happiness. One of the main points of this whole project is that everything that's involved in this has the co-benefit of added health. So some of you might be familiar with this poll that shows most Americans accept the science of climate change and know that it's human-related. Our audience at Mindful Climate Action is the 86% of Americans who think we can do something about it. And some of you might also know this quote. We think it's time to do the right thing. So Mindful Climate Action has 5 data buckets: transportation, diet, household, energy and water usage, health and happiness, and climate knowledge. I'm basically just involved in the climate knowledge part of this endeavor. But anyways, all of the lower ones are the way we're measuring these things, a lot of different ways to collect the data. Some of them come with actual numbers, some of them are self-reported. I like to say that the Mindful Climate Action Project is the ultimate citizen science project because all the participants collect data on their own lifestyle. Here's the curriculum. It's 8 weeks. If you've heard of John Kabat-Zinn mindfulness-based stress reduction, it might look familiar. The difference is that we've added the climate action component. The people who take the course meet for 8 weeks, and it's 2.5 hours, 1 night a week, and then you're supposed to do daily activities also. We've had 2 pilots so far. One was the spring of 2017, and the other one was last summer. So in the first one, we learned a lot of things we needed to improve. They were mostly related to the educational aspects of the program. The first time, we actually went to the classes and presented, and that was disruptive for the mindfulness part of it. So we since have developed videos that the mindfulness instructors can just show during the meetings. And we also updated the education curriculum because we found that the book we were using, which was from 2013, it wasn't that old, but it was outdated and needed to be updated. And the pre-post test, and then we have this little quiz now. So here are the pilots by the numbers. The first one We had great adherence rate, great response rate. We were able to successfully show that we could measure carbon footprint related to transportation, energy use at home, and water use, because using utility bills, and also food carbon footprint related to diet. So we were super happy about the first one. The second one of the main things we learned is that you can't hold these programs in the summer. We had very low attendance rate. Like I said, I showed this presentation at AGU. I don't know what the update is, but we didn't have a lot of data at that time. But we did learn is that they really liked the new education curriculum, and they particularly apparently loved this healthy and sustainable diets chapter. These are the chapters. Last year, AGU had a grant competition that they called Celebrate 100, and I applied and got $10K to update these chapters. Now, I know that's nothing, but remember, our first grant was $25K. You know, we're kind of limping along, but I was pretty happy to be able to update these. And like I mentioned, they're freely available online. And I want to just show you one of them, the most popular. It's only 3 pages long. We've got a food supply chain graphic. We've got a graph that shows you the relative impacts of your diet. We also talk about the importance of the carbon footprint of water in agriculture. And we also bring up Project Drawdown in this 3 pages. If you've heard of Project Drawdown, then you know that they list the 100 top actions that we can take to reverse climate change. That's their claim, to reverse climate change. And we're pretty excited with Mindful Climate Action that our measurable outcomes rate pretty highly on Project Drawdown's list, especially dietary consumption. And since shifting diets away from red meat to plants and vegetables has such a huge impact towards reducing carbon footprint, we're super excited about Tom Bryan. You guys, some of you might know him. He's a PhD student on campus. He's come to the project more recently. He's Kathy Middlecamp's student, and Kathy is part of the team too. She wasn't in that first picture, but he took food intake records that are nationally recognized, been around forever, and applied a recent 2018 environmental impact study to them. And he's got a very precise, kind of cutting-edge way to measure carbon footprint related to diet. Here's those databases, what they look like. He published it last December, so if you want to read about it, you can Google Tom Bryan and My Diet is what he calls the new eco impact calculator. Just so you know, Tom realizes that if he had AI or even right now it's a spreadsheet and a little more labor intensive, a way to create an app, once again, we're looking for funding. So he's aware of ways to improve it, but meanwhile, the basic science of what he's doing is pretty fabulous. So our next steps, we're trying to get funding. We have a UW 2020 grant in right now, so, fingers crossed, we might get that in April. I think we're applying to NIH right now. I am basically a minor player. I don't make all the big decisions. But I think NIH is going in. So eventually, once we have results from a randomized controlled trial, then we want to market it to businesses. So maybe Epic or Google would want to offer it to their employees because productivity should be better because they're healthier, happier employees, and people would be likely conserve energy at work. And so if we were able to make money off those, then we could offer it to community organizations and educational places, for basically nothing. So Mindful Climate Action aims for personal and planetary health, but let's face it, the planet will be fine. It's people that will suffer. I'm in it for my kids and future generations, and all people really. I feel strongly, and the whole Mindful Climate Action team feels, that reducing personal carbon footprint can help save humanity. And that's the end of my AGU talk. But wait, there's more. I want to know if there's any interest to meet and discuss those chapters that I showed you. So I'm going to pass this around, and I'm just talking about after spring break and before the end of the term. If anyone wants to, you can leave your email and put a check to when you might be available. Thank you so much. Any questions? Yes.
I was just curious. curious how you selected the initial groups of people for the pilot study.
Well, the way we recruited them, so they had to be between the age 30 and 60. They had to own a home in Madison, because we wanted to use the MG&E utility bills and the water bills. And they had to own a home because they had to have those bills, own a car that they used at least part-time, and not be vegetarians. So, because we wouldn't show any progress that way. So, yes.
Margaret, I hear that electric cars are going to be the wave of the future. Are you aware of how much thought has been given to how many tons of coal are we going to have to burn to provide the electricity for all these electric cars?
I think the idea is to not use any coal and to use renewable energy, either solar, probably solar, or wind turbines.
Well, at the moment, the percentage of electricity produced by coal, I think, is still very high compared to renewables.
Well, that's the goal. I read something once that somebody wrote that said, yes, I do use fossil fuel. Yes, I believe in a renewable lifestyle and, no carbon footprint. But remember, when Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, he used a candle. I mean, we have to use something to get to where we're going. But I just know the goal is to not use coal. So that's all I can say. Well, thank you, everyone.
So next up, we'll hear from a few graduate students about the newly formed AOS Mentorship Program.
Cool. So I'll start off. So AOS Mentorship Program, or AMP, started out trying to link together graduate students and undergraduates to help give them some mentoring throughout their time here. So what is AMP? Again, graduate to undergraduate mentoring based on 3 platforms of one-on-one, one grad student to one undergrad, small group collections, or more large group social interaction to, as it says, foster a more inclusive, inviting, collaborative environment throughout the department. So as some may or may not know, really the undergraduate program starts your junior year. That's when you start taking all your core classes. And before then, you don't really have a sense of where you belong in the community here as a freshman and sophomore. So we're trying to reach out to undergrads across all years to help bring them into the department and get them to know a little bit more about us and to help them improve as potential scientists. It's not a tutoring or research partnership. This is focused on building up science identity and self-efficacy, so feeling like you belong and feeling confident that you belong in this program. For a variety of reasons we want to do this. Part of it is to help limit barriers to access by giving students more resources earlier on that can help normalize the struggle that a lot of people go through as they get to the end of their undergraduate career. So now I'll go through some of the specifics.
So the first kind of mentoring platform is the one-on-one mentoring. So this is your more traditional mentoring style. So this is matching one undergrad with one graduate student. So you have a more personalized support system as well as a little bit of a more confidential setting if that is important to you. So our kind of thought is that this would be targeted more towards upperclassmen, so students that are juniors and seniors a little bit further along in their undergraduate career, maybe starting to think about applying for research internships, getting involved in different REUs or experiences like that, maybe thinking about grad school and have a lot of questions about what that means. But it's not limited to upperclassmen. Anyone is open to participate in this one-on-one style. So kind of focusing on, as a grad student, answering academic, research, or career questions that the undergrad might have, as well as just sharing information about opportunities. So either from your own experiences, things that you maybe did that were awesome as an undergrad, or things that you wish you had known about are great things to share. as well as the development of strategies to achieve outlined goals. So we developed some materials to go along with this and have a real focus on helping undergrads set goals and then strategize about how to achieve those goals. And as well as what Zoe kind of mentions, just overall shaping identity and confidence as a STEM professional.
So next up we have our group mentoring options, and the first one is the small group mentoring, which matches about 3 to 5 undergraduate students to a grad student. And this mentoring option is targeted towards the underclassmen who may not know anybody else in the major at the time, as we mentioned earlier, not having a lot of AOS classes early on in your career. So this is a way to meet other AOSers before starting your core sequence of AOS classes and to start learning about opportunities in the field and what being an atmospheric and oceanic scientist could entail for your future. So as in this individual group, members will set goals and work together to find ways to achieve those goals. And in this group setting, the mentor is more like a facilitator. So we want the members to kind of decide what they want to get out of these small group meetings. And then the mentor will take that information and kind of devise a plan in order to achieve what the undergraduates would like out of the group. And our last option is the large group mentoring, which is more like social events as stated before. And some of the goals for the large group mentoring is to provide undergraduate students to learn more about the AOS major and to increase social interaction between the graduate and undergraduate students, just to have a more wholesome community within the department. Large group mentoring is going to take place in the form of social events, monthly brown bag lunches, and other social gatherings throughout the semester. Some of these already exist and others will come up throughout this coming semester, but the main goal is just to increase social interaction between all members of the AOS community. And these brown bag lunches are going to cover a variety of topics that would be interesting to both graduate and undergraduate students, and maybe even faculty members as well. They may cover things like mental health, diversity in a STEM field, specific career opportunities in STEM, and other things like that. And in this large group setting, graduate students are not assigned to specific undergraduate students, and event attendees are encouraged to interact with everybody in attendance.
So those are the different types of mentoring. One of the reasons to join if you're an undergrad, I don't know if I see any undergrads here right now, pitching this number of times. First off, kind of the obvious, you have someone to ask questions to, and you might not know any one who you can ask questions to. And also learn from past experiences of other students. As mentioned, there's a lot of things that you know in retrospect. So being able to ask those questions. Also helping craft and work with others to achieve goals. Being able to write up personal and career goals and be able to figure out steps to actually achieve them. Some of the more professional development things that are kind of lost in the you'll learn them somehow. And then get to know about more resources available via AOS and other campus resources and beyond. And also, again, being able to expand your network by interacting with more graduate students, potentially faculty. For graduate students, it's also a great resource for you to gain mentoring experiences. A ton of jobs have some component of mentoring or working nicely with others. So this is a great opportunity to get that experience. Obviously, it's something great to have on your resume, that you play well with others and know how to effectively communicate goals and strategies. You're expanding your network by getting to know people who are eventually going to also be future scientists in the field, paying it forward in the sense that someone helped you get to where you are, you didn't get there on your own. So giving it back to the community, and along with that, passing along all the knowledge that you've gained from your life experiences, because again, there's a lot of things I wish I would have known when I started off. So the general kind of structure of it all, if you're in a small group or one-on-one mentoring, the agreement is at a minimum to meet at least once a month for an hour. You can do more if that's what you want. We're setting in a structure that there's going to be program and goal evaluations after each term. So in the beginning, you define, my professional goal is to have a polished CV. So at the end of the semester, you look at your CV, how polished is it, evaluate how you've gotten to the goals, and it's fine if you don't actually achieve them or your goals changed, but actually thinking through that process. And additionally, evaluating whether you're getting what you need out of the mentorship relationship. Just because we matched you up, there's going to be flaws in how we do it, so the chance to evaluate it, are you getting what you need from the mentor and mentees, are things working good? Mentors can change throughout time, that's just, the natural ebb and flow as people come and go. You're serving as a role model if you're a mentor, sharing your experiences and demonstrating personal integrity, kind of giving future scientists, this is the way that is a great way to show yourself in the community. And then as a general, respecting the confidentiality and time of your mentor-mentee, so building in some personal accountability along the way. So if you're a grad student or an undergrad, how do you sign up? Well, fill out the survey. I sent out a Qualtrics survey to a ton of people. You can also find them on the AMP GSA website. This just gets some basic information about you so we can match people up. And only a small selection of people will be looking at those. Matching occurs every semester, so if you don't have time this semester, you can always get in next time. And at the end of every semester, we'll evaluate people's evaluations of the program and potentially switch out mentors, mentees as needed and desired. With that, we'll take any questions. This fun QR links to the website also. Getting fancy. That's all. Yeah.
I'm just curious a little bit more about how you're going to match up, what criteria you're using to match up for the students.
Yeah, so in our surveys we have a variety of questions, partially just like the basics of year and how you identify gender-wise. So we have options for students to request or say, I'd like to be matched with another female scientist or another international students. We have those as optional things that people can add in. Additionally, do you have any specific research interests? Are you, even though it's not research mentoring, I have better experience to tell things are good for people who are interested in dynamics than people who are interested in like radar. That's not my expertise as much. And kind of future goals, everyone came here from a different place, so if you've gone off and worked in the private sector and that a mentee has interest in working in the private sector, to the best of our ability, we threw in a lot of things that students could answer, and so to the best of our ability, we'll pair that up, but without having like the data points yet, some of it's still in like a flux of what's not.
Just curious about your plan for long-term sustainability. I think it's a great program. If it takes off, it's going to be really exciting. What happens after you graduate? Is this GSA going to be kind of taking charge of running this program? Like, what's your vision for kind of after year one, basically?
So we've created documentation for everything in the program, everything we've done, all of the materials and references that we use to create everything. So all of that is stored on a drive so people can access that, as well as because it is a turnover every term. I think we'll have kind of as new grad students start, old grad students will still be in this program and be able to like bring people in that way. We are like associated with GSA, but we're not technically.
Yeah, we haven't technically become a committee. We also, right now it's great, we have like 9 grad students that are part of the organizational team building this up, ranging from first years, fourth year, I don't know what year you are, Andrew. But we have kind of a wide breadth of people that are helping organize it. So hopefully, as the goal is, as incoming first years, we're gonna pick off a few and have them take over. But we've tried to lay the infrastructure out, as you said, as best as we can. There's the structure, and the people that are organizing it throughout the semester and at the end of the term, as we're getting evaluations, will be updating the program as needed. So yeah, we definitely want it to be sustained.
Do you have a sense yet if the undergraduates are interested?
I've got 5 people signed up so
Okay,
far.
okay.
There's been a lot of interest. We're meeting with AMS, the American Meteorological Society's local chapter, tomorrow also. So we're sending it out. Eric also sent out something to all the students.
Okay.
So we just sent it out Monday. So hopefully everyone does it at the last minute. So we're gonna remind them at least once more. And I think by word of mouth, after it's happened one semester, getting a greater increase in future semesters.
Okay, great.
Any lingering questions?
Yeah.
When is it actually starting?
So we're hoping to start kind of beginning of March. All the surveys, submissions, we're hoping to have like February 26th, I think, is when the undergraduates is due. We have them due, and so, or 19th, I don't know. 19th. 26th is when we're hoping to send things out. So people will start meeting within the first week of March is the goal.
Something that was something out about potential recruitment. Almost half of our incoming residents are from other departments. And we are a home for environmental sciences. So wondering if you thought about expanding to like physics, math, or environmental science undergrads? Because that might be another way, particularly to attract the students, specifically ones who want to go to graduate from AOS, but maybe broader.
Yeah, we've thought about that. I think we want to not sink after our first semester and be overwhelmed with potential grad students or undergrads. So this semester we're focusing on the email lists that we are more directly associated with this department, but in future we've talked about going and visiting like 207, which is one of the locations at Physics 207, which is where a lot of undergrads go through. And as we have enough graduate students to support, we've also had previous communications that I need to get back in touch with from Geoscience. They have a similar mentorship program, so I'm in contact with one of the people that organizes that, and we've talked about having cross events. Because yeah, it's not isolated to this.
Have you promoted on the AOS 101 or class?
Yeah, I have promoted to both my sections and the lecture via email just yesterday. So we're trying to especially get people when they're younger to hopefully retain more AOS majors and just make them feel really comfortable in our community here. Thank you.
All right, so last up, we've got Fred Nagel. A little bit about Fred while he's getting prepared. So Fred did his bachelor's in mathematics.
Doctors, no, not doctors. Bachelor's.
Bachelor's.
No, okay, no.
Okay. So Fred got his BS in mathematics from American University in Washington, D.C. in 1951. He was a U.S. Air Force pilot from 1951 to 54. He got his MS in meteorology at UCLA in 1958. His master's in applied mathematics at North Carolina State in 1967. He was worked at the Navy Weather Research Facility in Norfolk, Virginia from 58 to 74. And he worked at NOAA, NESDIS, Sweetland, Maryland in Madison from 1974 to 94. and was at UW-Madison SOCC from 1995 to present.
Well, I have to apologize, I did not prepare any slides. I did have 15, I made 15 copies of a handout, that's how many I was expecting here. So just pass those around. On the last page of this handout, there is information on how to FTP a 1,600-line document on MeteFor. Now, MeteFor is an acronym. It stands for Meteorological Fortran, and my presentation today is not premature because MeteFor has been in use here at SSCC for 35 years. So I'm not, this is not revolutionary. Another reason that this talk is not premature is that next month I'll be 91, and at that age, nothing is premature. Okay. Okay, the origins of Meteorological Fortran were back about 1975 when I got the job of doing some programming on an instrument called a DSAS, a Digital Solar Aspect Sensor, which involved a great deal of vector analysis. And I got sick and tired of doing all the programming, always calling subroutines and do loops and everything to express what were simple vector concepts. And I thought that someone should, with a good compiler writer with an hour or two of effort, could build vector analysis into MeteFor. Well, I thought I would try doing that, and I did. And then I thought I would also include matrices as intrinsic variables within MeteFor, within Fortran, so you didn't have to always call subroutines to say to multiply two matrices together. Well, I got a preliminary version working here. Working on the old IBM computer that we used to have down on the 6th floor. Got that working about 1985, and of course I've used it now with Unix and Linux systems. And I might point out that the MeteFor processor is a pre-compiler. It will take a program that is written with all of this vector and matrix notation and will convert it into a form that a Fortran 77 compiler will accept. The Fortran 77 compiler, of course, blows up as soon as it sees mention of a matrix or a vector. And by the way, MeteFor is SSCC property. SSCC paid me salary to for part of the time that I was writing this, and so it belongs to SSCC. You don't have to pay a rental with some outside agency. The ordinance, as I say, were in 1975, and I should define what I mean by a vector. By a vector, I mean a three-dimensional vector which is subject to Gibbsian arithmetic, such as dot products, cross products, course sums and differences. And by a vector, I don't mean a row vector or a column vector of the matrix. I mean just a three-dimensional vector. The language also contains the ability to, for example, have a vector-valued function or a matrix-valued function, which is to say that a subroutine or a function returns its value through its name in an arithmetic statement. You don't call it and then transfer the value when you get back. The value appears, shows up right in the arithmetic statement, so that you can write your matrix or vector expression right online, and MeteFor will deal with it in that way. The same is true of matrices. And I believe on page 4 of those of you that have the handout, you can see some matrix valued arithmetic there. it's in, yeah, I think it's page 4. Matrix valued arithmetic, on that page there is a do loop. I think it's the next page after that, maybe it's the wrong one. In that do loop on, let me tell you what page it is here. In the do loop, the dimensionality of a matrix changes dynamically. Yeah, it's found, so it's page 5, slide 5. In a do loop, the matrix changes dynamically. That is, when you go through a do loop one time, dealing with a 6x6 matrix, the next pass through the do loop, all those matrices are now 7x7s. And so the dimensionality of a matrix changes dynamically as you go through it. You don't redimension it yourself. And let me see what else I notice here. About 5 years ago, I decided to introduce pointers into MeteFor, and this allows pointers, as with C, for example, allow you to transfer data from place to place using just pointers. You can transfer data from Fortran space to pointer space, or pointer space to Fortran, or between pointers, and you can do input, output, and you can manipulate data pretty well with pointers, and that is relatively new. That was not in the original version. As I say, you can get a hold of this 1,600-line document by FTPing to on the last page of the document. If you want the 1,600-page document, that will describe it in full. And I think I don't have much more to add to that. If I have any questions, I can answer them. But anyway, it's available, and those of you who want more information can contact me, and my email is on the final page of the sheet there. And I don't have anything more to add unless you have some questions.
I can send you. I can send that link and your contact info out to the AOS Everyone list if you'd like.
I beg your pardon?
I can send your contact info and that link out to the Everyone at AOS list if you'd like.
Oh, fine. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think to a lot of the students in the room, what you're doing is beginning in 1970, what is kind of being done with languages like Python now, and I was kind of introduced to this sort of preprocessor with interactive data language, IDL, that allows you to do some of those same kind of things. And even those, I think the underlying software is Fortran. How much does, one of the things we find is that as you use these other higher level languages, you sacrifice speed. The Fortran is very fast. Do you find, and I'm sure because of the applications you had, speed was still a requirement. Does this add a lot of overhead to the calculations?
Not that I am aware of in the applications that I have used. Now you could, it goes without saying, I think it's on slide 5. If you look at that do loop there, all of the variables in that do loop, at least the ones that are in capital letters, are matrices. Right. And of course, if you're going to multiply a 10 by 10 matrices together, you're going to take some time. We're converting a 20 by 20, which is what that program does. Yeah, I'm sure it slows you down. By the way, you do need a runtime library because MeteFor calls upon some routines, many of which were written in C, to actually do this stuff in the background that you as a programmer are not aware of. But yeah, I'm sure there's, it seems to me to be very fast, but yes, I'm sure there's a penalty to pay. But I haven't done any timing studies on it. Well, that's about it. Thank you.